A little over 3 years ago, Mercedes-Benz started a new family of electric vehicles known as the Mercedes EQ lineup. It all started out with the flagship EQS, an S-Class sized luxury electric sedan, which was then followed up by the SUV version known as the EQS. Now last year, Mercedes-Benz showed off a slightly smaller version of the EQS sedan called the EQE, and by its name you can probably guess it's essentially a mid-size E-Class sized electric equivalent of their very popular E-Class sedan. So as you can see this week, we are testing out the latest member of the EQ family. This right here is the brand new 2023 EQE SUV. And as you can tell from the name, this is essentially an SUV version of the EQE because it's been lifted up. It's slightly wider and slightly shorter to give it, again, more interior space and more of that SUV seating position. So this week, we're actually going to put the EQE 500 through our usual battery of tests. We're going to live with this vehicle. And at the end of this review, we're going to find out, has Mercedes successfully created kind of like the electric equivalent to their very popular GLE-Class? Stay tuned to find out. So taking a look at the exterior styling of this brand new 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. Gosh, what a very confusing name because, again, Mercedes decided to use EQE or EQS for both the sedan and SUV, but they add an SUV to the name to show you that this is a sport utility vehicle. This particular one here that I'm showing you is the EQE 500. And what the 500 means is this is basically one notch below the AMG version, which is known as the EQE AMG. Mercedes is going to offer this as an EQE 350 Plus, an EQE 350 4Matic with all-wheel drive, and of course this E500 4Matic, which comes standard with dual electric motors and a 90.6 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And this is typically the part where I would pop the hood here and show you guys that this vehicle has a frunk. However, just like the EQS and EQE sedan, this vehicle's hood is not allowed to be opened by the customer. There is like a little door that you need a tool to remove the door that covers the hood release because the HEPA air filtration system blocks under the hood, which is why this vehicle has no frunk. But let's go ahead and talk about the specs really quick because this has dual electric motors, like I said, is standard, a 90.6 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, 402 horsepower, 633 pound-feet of torque. That is a healthy increase versus the 288 horsepower you get in the EQE 350, which is the base version. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, and Mercedes-Benz says this model should get to 60 in around 4.6 seconds. It has a top speed around 130 miles an hour, and this vehicle will tow a maximum of 3,500 pounds, which is the same as the EQS SUV, and again, you can actually tow with it, unlike the EQE sedan, which is not recommended to tow. Now, in terms of range, the EPA says this will go up to 269 miles on a full charge. We'll test it out with our actual equipment. This vehicle will accept up to 170 kilowatts of max DC fast charging. And this vehicle, if you have it plugged up to a level 3, should do about 10 to 80% in about 32 minutes. And then if you have it plugged into a level 2, it has a 9.6 kilowatt-hour onboard charger, which means you can go from 10 to 100% in roughly 10 and a half hours. So the charging specs are about class average, not the fastest in the class, but again, about on par with every one of its competitors. But let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling, because as you can see, the EQ family has this kind of new front fascia where it has the big pointed star. It has the kind of star logo in the actual grille, although this is not actually a grille. There's no functional openings here because it doesn't need it. It's an electric vehicle. You can see there's this LED light bar that connects the two headlight modules together. You can see this model here has the optional digital light package, so it has the adaptive headlights that project symbols and kind of patterns onto the road. You have LED low and high beams, LED daytime running lights, LED turn signals, no fog lights. You can see my tester is lacking the AMG body styling package, so we kind of have the less aggressive look with the chrome, fake vents over here, functional vents here with actual active grille shutters. You can see your parking sensors are integrated there along with the front camera as well. The big pointed star, which again has one on the hood to kind of show you that this is a Benz. It never lets you forget. And then you can see here moving around the side profile of this car, I don't particularly love the shape of any of the EQ products except for the EQB, which is essentially a box. But because of the jelly bean shape, this has a 0.26 coefficient of drag. Now, I will say the sedan version has a 0.22 coefficient of drag, so obviously the SUV isn't going to be quite as aerodynamic. You can see the wheels. These are the 20-inch wheels that you get with the executive trim line that my tester has. These are the standard wheels. They kind of have this really interesting aerodynamic cover that kind of, again, shows off that it's a 5-spoke design. The tires on this vehicle are a 255 by 45 R20. These are a Cooper tire. I'm not entirely sure why it's a Cooper tire. I feel like this is not the standard tire that it comes with. It's possible that the press fleet company may have changed out the tires. This vehicle does come with an air suspension with adaptive dampers, and it also has four-wheel steering. So the rear axle will turn up to 10 degrees in either the same direction or the opposite direction, depending on what speed the vehicle is at. The air suspension for $2,000 extra allows this vehicle to be raised up by about an inch or lowered about a half an inch for aerodynamics. Now this little slit over here is for filling up the washer fluid, because again, you have to still be able to do that if you're trying to do a little bit of maintenance on the car. And then looking at the rest of the profile here, you can see, let me back away. The dimensions of this car are interesting because, again, it has that egg jelly bean shape. Its wheelbase is 119.3 inches long. That's about an inch and a half longer than a GLE-Class. Its overall length is around 191.5 inches long. This is about 5 inches shorter than the EQE sedan, but also around 3 inches shorter versus a GLE-Class SUV, which is, again, doesn't share a platform, but Mercedes will like you to think that this is actually a GLE electric equivalent. That's why they call it an EQE. The difference between the GLE, again, is the roof height. This car is about 4 inches lower in height versus the GLE. Now above on the roof here, you can see no actual roof rails. I would have liked to see something there because SUV owners like to do that. You have a glass roof here that doesn't open, but it has a shade. You can see there's some chrome along the window trim. There's some chrome on the door handles. It's got those same pop-out door handles. The mirrors also electrically fold, and there's a turn signal indicator on them. And then looking at the rear, you can see this gray exterior color of my tester. It looks pretty good, although I probably would go for a little bit more of an interesting color. This just kind of looks a little bit drab, and it accentuates the jelly bean shape. You can see the rear has that similar style for its full length LED tail lights. You can see you have LED turn signals, LED brake lights, LED reverse lights, EQE badging over here, 4Matic to let people know that you have all-wheel drive. I like the fact that there is a rear window wiper. Some manufacturers are removing that. The spoiler on the back could be bigger. And then down here on the rear lower bumper, you can see it tries to look like an exhaust tip, but obviously this is electric. There's a lot of chrome trim. I believe the AMG line will kind of black that out a little bit if you guys prefer that as opposed to the chrome. Now opening up the trunk area, you can see it's got a power liftgate that's included. And what's interesting to me is the trunk capacity is small when you look at the numbers, just around 18.5 cubic feet with the seats up. This vehicle does not offer a third row. That's only on the EQS because the EQS is about a foot longer. If you fold down the second row seats here, you'll expand it out to around 55 cubic feet of space, which is fine. But compare that to the GLE-Class, which has like 35 cubic feet of space and expands it up to like 75 when you have the seats folded. And that model also offers a third row. So again, you're going to give up some compromises here by going with the electric version. Now underneath here, you can see there is a good amount of storage underneath here where it has room for the mobile charger. I really like the fact that you have that additional storage. There's also additional storage over here. The carpet back here is also plush. You have these aluminum kick plates, and overall, it's still a very usable cargo area. It offers more space than the sedan, but just keep in mind, if you want even more capability and towing capability, Mercedes has the GLE-Class SUV, but again, that is their gas equivalent. So obviously the EQE SUV's exterior is not my particular cup of tea. However, the interior is where Mercedes tends to shine. So let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of this vehicle. Before we hop inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the newest Mercedes-Benz fob. It's a very nice looking key. It also is very heavy. It feels sturdy. It feels like you could probably shank somebody with this key, honestly. It's got your usual lock, unlock, power liftgate button. It also has a panic button. If you have access to the Mercedes Me app, you should be able to also access this vehicle through your smartphone and perhaps even remotely start the vehicle. You can see the door handles. They have the electronic pop in and out feature of the S-Class. So you can see as I lock the door, the mirrors will fold in. If I approach the vehicle, I didn't step away far enough, the door lock should automatically pop out for me. But when you're standing too close, like I have been for, showing you guys this video and whatnot, you have to kind of touch the door handle. That'll make the door handles pop out again. Pull it, you can see opening up the door, you can see my tester has a really nice color combination. This interior is an extra $1,400. It's called Sable Brown with Neva Gray. So this is a real Napa leather. The seats themselves adjust in like 14 different ways. They're heated and ventilated. They lack the massage feature, however. You have to go up to the Pinnacle trim to get the massage feature and then add like an extra $2,000 for that extra option. But you can see the two-tone look is very appealing looking. You can see you have this kind of real faux leather material here. This almost feels like a vegan leather with the contrast copper stitching, which is nice. You have some seat controls over here, aluminum controls for the window switches. As you can see, the windows have a high-quality tactile feel. Aluminum for the door handle here. Metal speaker covers there for the Burmester 3D sound system. You can see it's nice and padded over here, but it's hard-touch plastic down here, which is kind of disappointing. There is some beautiful ambient lighting in this cabin, which, by the way, Mercedes, as you guys know, tends to do really beautiful ambient lighting. So at night, this vehicle looks even better. The seats, you can see, they look really nice. I like the kind of contrasting stitching and the diamond quilting pattern or the diamond stitching pattern along with that white steering wheel, although be careful, that white steering wheel, as you can see, can start to show dirt pretty quickly if you guys don't keep it clean. Now, getting inside, this vehicle does have a nice easy step-in height because of the SUV portion. Then you can see once you shut the door also has a nice solid sounding thunk, although Mercedes doesn't offer a soft close feature for the door, which is kind of frustrating. But once you're in here, you can see the ambient lighting is already showing up in here, even though it's still pretty light outside, but you can see start the vehicle up, the start stop button is right here. Once you push that, you can see there's obviously no engine, so it just kind of whirs to life with those kind of sound effect noises, which Mercedes allows you to customize. And then you can see here you have the standard infotainment display for my test. You can see there's a 12.3-inch display here for the instrument panel, which is all digital, and then you have a 12.8-inch waterfall style display here, a portrait style display that runs the latest MBUX with their voice commands, of course. You can also get the company's Hyper Screen, which is a 56-inch screen that spans across the entire dash. However, I believe there's like a part shortage going on because I haven't had an EQ product that has it just yet. So it's a little bit of a more rare option to get, where you basically have a screen here, a screen here, and a screen here, and it's one continuous piece of glass. It's very impressive, but it's also not really necessary. But we'll talk about that in just a second. You can see that it's the same beautiful material here. I love the way it kind of continues from the door panel all the way up onto the dashboard with the ambient light, the copper accents going across the actual dash fence, which is nice. This is the brown magnolia wood, as you can see, with the Mercedes star pattern. This is actually free. It's beautiful. I absolutely love this. I wish the stars will illuminate at night, but they don't. But again, it looks very, very impressive. The steering wheel itself has a manual or power tilt telescoping adjustment. It's not the AMG wheel, as you can see from the lack of a flat bottom or the AMG badging, but you have paddles on the wheel to control the regen braking. You have these touch sensitive controls to control that, to control the adaptive cruise control, the horn. Sounds good. It sounds appropriate given the size of the vehicle and not puny. And with the power tilt and telescoping, you have a lot of degree of adjustability. It's easy to get comfortable in this vehicle. You can see the screen here at 12.8 inches. With wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, works really nicely. It's pretty quick and snappy. You can see the climate control functions stay put here. They don't change, but if I go back to the home screen here, you can see there's the MBUX navigation system. This also has software where you can do augmented reality. We'll input, like use the camera here and put street directions over it, which is pretty cool technology. The map resolution quality and graphics is perfectly fine as well. I also like this kind of shortcut button displays here where you can have 0 layers and put climate functions over here. You can see if you go to the climate menu, this has dual zone climate control. You can also get 4-zone climate, although my tester is missing that. It's also missing the air fragrance package where it will waft a perfume in here. So again, for $100,000 almost, it's missing a lot of options. I would have liked to see those features included with this trim. You can see your drive mode selector is here. There's 5 different modes, from an efficiency, sport, comfort, sport, intelligent, and like an off-road-ish mode. You can actually adjust the air suspension from an actual button. It's linked all to the drive modes. Going to the EQ button here, you can access the charging functions. You can open and close the socket flaps. You can stop the charging. You can look at your range and your consumption, your route, all that stuff that you expect. The car icon here will bring up some icons here where you can raise and lower through a button over here. Then you kind of access a car mode. You can turn on and off the lane keep assist. So this is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get used to it, it's actually pretty easy to understand. That's a fingerprint reader there. When you guys want to, I guess, match it to your actual fingerprint, it'll allow the car to start on and off. You can see there's a piano black plastic trim, which I don't love here. You can see the wireless phone charging pad is over here. You have cup holders here, which this whole thing comes out in case you need to clean that, in case you spilled something. And then over here you can see padded center console area. It's pretty deep as well. I love how deep that is. And then you also have additional storage over here, which is definitely nice. You have ambient LED lighting, or you have LED map lighting in here, which is nice. You have a big panoramic glass roof, which also has a sunshade that can open and close. These seats, like I said earlier, they adjust in like 14 different ways. I like how comfortable and soft the seats are. You can see opening this up, the glove box is damped and lined with felt. It's actually a pretty big size. So overall, the interior looks pretty much identical to the last EQS that I showed you, right down to the materials. Although if you're looking for more of that upper features, you're going to have to pay a little bit extra, because even the 500 trim that I'm showing you here, it's still extra for some of the upper end features like the hyper screen. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat, because the back seat of this vehicle is still on the bigger side, especially for the Class. Opening this up, you can see because this is built off of a dedicated EV architecture, it has a completely flat floor for the back seat. You have the same nice materials back here with the contrasting stitching, the aluminum trim. And then these seats, they don't actually recline, but they do obviously fold down, and when you fold them down, it almost gives you a completely flat load floor, which is nice. And then once you're back here, you can see the space is a little over 40 inches of legroom. So you have around 40.6 inches of legroom back here, which is near the top of the class. This actually has 2 more inches of legroom versus a GLE, and this is very, very nice. You can see you have rear seat air vents, but there's a big empty panel here because my Tesla is missing the quad zone climate control or the heated rear seats. Thankfully, the materials here are still nice. You have 2 storage cubbies or 2 map pockets in the actual seat backs. If you open this up, you can see this also has 2 more USB-C charging ports. But again, if you don't get the Pinnacle trim, you're going to really be skimping out here for the rear seat passengers. You can see, fold this down, you have an armrest with 2 cup holders and a little bit of a phone holder here. So overall, the back seat in terms of features is lacking, but again, you can fix that by adding in that Pinnacle package, which I probably would do for an extra $3,000. But overall, if you guys are looking for a family vehicle and you don't need a third row, the EQE SUV certainly will deliver in terms of rear seat space. So here we are in the SUV version of the smaller EQE, and as you guys remember my reviews on the other EQ Mercedes products, you'll know that I'm not quite necessarily the fan of the styling of these vehicles. They just don't have the sex appeal of their gas counterpart vehicles. However, the SUV Mercedes is probably expecting this to be a very top-selling vehicle, and I really liked the way the EQE drove. I just don't love the way this car looks. I actually think this car looks worse than the EQE sedan, which I tested about 9 months ago when I had one back in January of this year. Now that model was also an EQE 500. This one is also the EQE 500 SUV. It lugs around an extra 200 pounds of weight, but it also has the same 402 horsepower, 633 pound-feet of torque. Benz says this will get to 60 in 4.6 seconds. We've got around a 75% charge right now, so let's go ahead and see what we can get in our actual testing here. So it's in sport mode. Oh God, this thing is definitely fast. 4.13 seconds, so only 0.2 seconds slower than the sedan, and that's about a half a second faster than what Benz claims, which doesn't surprise me. The Germans are always conservative with their 0 to 60 times, but 4.1 is excellent. And don't forget, there is an EQE AMG version, which has like 614 horsepower, so like an extra 200 horsepower than this. I haven't had a chance to drive one of those yet. I'm hoping I can get my hands on one soon. Ben says that'll do it in 3.4. I'd estimate that it's probably under 3 seconds, but regardless, I mean, this thing, it just feels so fast. And the cool thing about it is it's just fast anytime you go near the throttle. In fact, we'll do it here one more time. This time I'm not going to brake torque it. 4.29 there. So without brake torquing it, it's a little bit slower, but that's also with a slight incline here. So if I get another opportunity up ahead, I might try it one more time just to see if we can consistently get that 4.1, or if we could potentially break into the 3s. But for the car that's not an AMG model, this thing is definitely fast. I mean, it's about a second faster than the GLE 450 that I tested a couple months ago, which Benz will like to tell you that's like the gas equivalent of this car. However, driving the two vehicles, not back to back, but, you know, pretty close to each other, this feels nothing like a GLE SUV. This essentially feels like I'm driving a downsized EQS, because I just had the EQS 450 Plus 4Matic, which that car did it in about 5.2 seconds, so about a second slower than this car. So there's definitely a reason to go for the 500 version of, you know, the more high output powertrains, or the high output electric motors of these electric Mercedes-Benz models. Now, in terms of this being a smaller vehicle, it weighs around 700 pounds or 600 pounds less than the EQS SUV that I tested about a month ago. And you definitely feel the reduced mass in this vehicle, but it essentially just feels like every other electric Mercedes that I've driven. It just has a planted feel to it. The steering is numb and devoid of feel. It doesn't feel sporty at all. It just feels big, heavy, and planted, which is, you know, kind of a good thing. A lot of people really appreciate that kind of feeling when they're driving these fast EVs. And the GLE kind of gives you that high quality feeling, bank vault smoothness. The four-wheel steering in this car also allows it to kind of turn on a dime, and with the one-speed gearbox, there's no gear changes. It's just instantaneous thrust. It's got that fake sound. This is on Vivid Flux right now, and it just sounds like something from like the Jetsons. Actually, I like this sound the most. There's like 3 of them. There's like silver waves, and then there's also roaring pulse. I prefer the vivid flux. It's my favorite. It just kind of goes with the character of this car. So I'm really happy to see that Mercedes is doing something a little bit different, and they're adding kind of that drama that you expect from, you know, these electric vehicles. People really want, you know, that kind of drama. But let's go ahead and see here. 4.17 there. So again, kind of the same result. So it's very consistent, and it kind of matches up with the fact that this car weighs around 200 pounds heavier. The brakes on this car definitely take some getting used to. This car has the strong recuperation, the one pedal drive. When you have it on strong recuperation, it kind of gives you the effect of one pedal drive. But again, Benz does this weird thing where they will have the brake pedal match the position that it thinks it's going to be in if you were actually pressing the brake pedal. So when you go to look for the brake pedal, it's further down, and you have to kind of get used to the brake pedal moving on its own without your foot actually being into it, which is definitely super weird. But other than that, what really shocks me about this car is the ride quality. I love the ride quality. My tester has the 4Matic air suspension for an extra $2,000. That's still an a la carte option, even if you guys go for the base or for the pinnacle trim. And this car definitely has a really great ride quality. If you guys are sick of EVs having kind of that very stiff, bouncy ride because of the heavy batteries and the big wheels and tires, these Benz vehicles, these Mercedes electric vehicles will surprise you because of the air suspension, the way it's tuned. It just kind of gives you that luxury car ride, which is better considering the price tag of this car. In terms of the seat comfort also, these seats, I will say they feel pretty comfortable for me. This is the upgraded leather, not the full Napa leather, but it's kind of like that brown and gray leather that you can get for an extra $1,700. It's definitely a nice touch. These seats, they do offer a massaging seat, but my tester doesn't have the massage function. I kind of wish it did. I'm a little sad it doesn't have the massage function. I guess that F-150 decided to do a burnout there. But with that 4-wheel steering, again, this thing just turns on a dime, and then it just has power to merge into traffic, to get out of its own way, and it's just so satisfying. That's what people love about EVs, is when you drive one of these vehicles as a daily driver, you just get used to the smoothness, the instantaneous torque of it, the lack of gear changes. And again, it's going to appeal to somebody who's a non-car person, but if you guys are enthusiasts and you love the sound of an engine, those fake sounds, they're not going to really do it for you. I like the fake sounds, I just don't think it replaces an actual satisfying, you know, AMG V8 engine note. That's kind of something that people really love about AMG products, but although this one is not an AMG. Now, in terms of the driver assistance tech, my tester has the latest from Mercedes. It has automatic lane changes, it has traffic jam assistance, it has adaptive cruise control with full speed range. It works pretty well. The lane change assist also works pretty well. It's not the hands-free driving you get like from a GM Super Cruise, but Mercedes-Benz is working on that. They have that technology in Europe. It just hasn't been approved yet here in the US. In terms of range, let's go ahead and talk about range, because this car is rated at 269 miles on a full charge. Surprisingly, it has 9 more miles of range versus the EQE 500 sedan that I tested earlier this year. That is rated at 260 miles of range from the same battery pack, but from a lighter vehicle with a better coefficient of drag. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. This car on a full charge, the trip computer was showing around 317 miles of range. That's with the air conditioning off. Turn the air conditioning on, it drops it to around 299 miles of range on a full charge, which is good. In my week's worth of testing, I actually averaged around 260 miles of range in real world testing. Now that is pretty good. It's almost bang on with what the EPA's numbers are. That is a little bit less, however, versus a GLS or an EQS SUV I tested a couple, like a month or two ago. That did a little bit better than the EPA's numbers. This kind of did exactly what the EPA says it's going to do. So that's a little interesting to me. Mercedes tends to be overachievers in the range department. Remember though, this has a smaller 90.6 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it doesn't charge quite as quickly as the EQS SUV, which is kind of expected. This is on the lower end of the totem pole. But this SUV is just a really easy vehicle to drive. It gives you good visibility, although I will say the dashboard here is very high up. That's a characteristic with these EQ models. I wish that Benz offered a digital camera review mirror, but this car is still really easy to drive thanks to the tight turning radius of the 4-wheel steering, the comfortable seats, the quietness of this cabin, the real world range, which is excellent. So again, if you guys are, looking for a long range electric SUV with luxury, this is definitely one of the ones out there you're gonna want to go with. And in my week's worth of testing, I didn't hear a single squeak or rattle, which really impressed me as well. These Benz vehicles, the newer ones, I've tended to heard those in some other vehicles, but in this one, it just feels tight and really well made. So that's always nice. But in terms of if you guys are, considering this or a GLE, the gas or a plug-in hybrid version of that vehicle, I don't know if this feels like an electric equivalent. It just feels like a taller version of the EQE sedan, which I guess is a good thing, but it doesn't quite give you the towing capability, the cargo space, because this has a lot less cargo space. It does give you more rear seat legroom, but it is definitely a worthy option if you guys are, you must have an electric vehicle and it must be a Mercedes and you're considering, one of their sedans. The EQE SUV is certainly worth a look. So it's crazy to think that it's already been about 3 years since Mercedes-Benz first graced us with their first full production all-electric vehicle, the EQS. And I have to say, when I first drove the EQS, I definitely loved the way that vehicle drove. However, I didn't quite think it to be the electric equivalent to an S-Class. In terms of the dimensions, it was, and that's kind of the case here with the EQE. One notch below the EQS. These vehicles don't exactly feel like the electric equivalent of an E-Class sedan or an S-Class sedan. And I think that's where Mercedes is making a little bit of a mistake here. Why don't they just create an electric version of the E-Class? That's a very popular vehicle for Mercedes-Benz along with the GLE-Class. Those vehicles just look a lot nicer. They have more presence to them. These cars here, I still haven't gotten behind the look of the EQE, especially the SUV version. Again, looks are always subjective because once you kind of get past the jelly bean shape, this vehicle does have excellent electric-only range, around 260 miles in real-world testing. Pretty much comes close to what the EPA rates it as. 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds is also quick. And remember, if you don't need it to be this fast, you can also go for the 350 model and save yourself about $12,000. Again, for those of you who don't need the extra speed, that might be a welcome addition. There's also the AMG version of this car, which will probably do 0 to 60 in the low 3s, but that again puts this price well over $100,000 if you guys want the extra speed. The interior definitely feels like a Mercedes. It's well made. It has some pretty impressive tech to it. It's got comfortable seats. It's quiet. It's luxurious. It's spacious. The back seat is spacious, but the cargo area is compromised. But really, when you start looking at the competitive set, the EQE SUV does fit very nicely into its German space because, as you guys know, this would compete with the BMW iX, which would also start at around $89,000. The Audi Q8 e-tron, which I also just tested, has similar range. It is less expensive. The Audi is about $10,000 less. Remember, if you guys want to get a vehicle like this, you're looking at the German luxury space, and those can get pretty expensive depending on the options and whatnot that you're configuring with those vehicles. My tester here is the 500 trim, which means the 500 has some extra features on it that make it a little bit more expensive. So if you're looking at one of these vehicles, you're going to be looking at the base price, which is around $77,900 for the EQE 350 Plus. Now that $77,900 is actually the same price whether you go for the 4Matic or the rear drive version, which is kind of surprising to me. Usually the manufacturers charge extra for the all-wheel drive version of their vehicles. The 500 version here is going to cost about $12,000 more, so around $89,000 to start for the base version of the EQE 500. With options that my tester has, the grand total comes to just under 100 grand, so $99,860, which is a lot of money, but you can also equip a BMW iX xDrive 50 to essentially be the same price. The Audi Q8 e-tron, like I said earlier, is a little bit less expensive, and then you can also look at some of like Tesla competitors, for example, the Model Y, which is technically a little bit smaller than this, is less expensive. This is kind of tweening in between a Model X and a Model Y. And then, of course, there's the Lexus RZ, which I don't really consider a competitor because it just doesn't have the range of this vehicle. But as you guys know, the electric space continues to grow, and there are also some non-luxury brands that will offer similar performance and similar range, but at significantly lower price tags. But what you do get with the Mercedes is a better ride quality, a better interior, just a little bit more luxury feel in the cabin. And if that's important to you, if that 3-pointed star badge is important to you, this EQE SUV is certainly worth a look. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this brand new 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQE 500 SUV. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.